remained with yourselves, per se, as the nuclear family? What do you remember so well?
I think because for me, he died in my arms, so for me it was more real. So when I knew it was done, so African culture, I had to call home. Let's close the sitting room. Yeah. So I wasn't crying. Like my mom was wailing, my auntie was there wailing. So I was calling. I'm like, okay, so where are we burying? Who's buying the coffin? Like I was being very practical. Like those are the things I was talking about. Like, okay, when are we going? We need to inform the workplace, kind of thing. So we get home, and people who are at home had sort of organized, and of course you go and bury. But you see, in a Acholi culture, when you buried in Gulu, but now more like when you bury, you have to stay with the body. I think for 3 days. You can't just leave. Even if you want to leave, you can't. So I didn't cry. I think I cried a bit when they were pushing him
in the grave.
At that point, you realize,
he's actually gone, and you're never going to see them.
When they brought the coffin from Mulago, first to home here in Kampala, I took out the body and I want to take a picture to remember him, because I knew, the longer you've known someone, and it's easy to forget them, just to make sure I remembered his face and everything. So when we went to the village to bury, and that is done in Gulu, you have to, in Acholi culture, you stay to keep the body. You don't just
deposit them there and go back to your normal life.
Of course, his burial has so many people. So many, you don't even know where to pass. People even don't care where you are. They're also just jostling to see him or whatever. And so everyone goes the next day. You remain there and saying sorry, a few people, but also they have this thing that they dance the whole night. So they really party, for them it's a celebration.
Celebrating.
So they really dance, so you're just there, you don't even know what to do. So I think it is the process after, when you come back now to Kampala, and you know that, okay, he's no longer driving in. You can no longer make the phone call. That's when it hits you. That on the dining seat, they're no longer putting for him, serving him food. It's those small, those mundane things, Actually, before I used to, I don't know, maybe I have a sense like Barbara said. I remember the time I had come back I was in university. Then you come back and watch them, and I enjoyed watching them eat. And I was like, wow, how is this? Just eat in silence. Those are things that I missed. So somehow they, that comes, and then the house is so quiet. Literally, you hear everything. You hear anything. Literally, that is, I think, the worst thing about it is the quietness, because you literally have to face your pain now. Me, I had not cried. I had not eaten almost in a week or so. So when I came back, it's the first day I ate. Everyone was shocked, because every time they would give me food, I was not eating. But that day, I really sat on the plate. I remember it was fish and rice, and I ate it. I ate it I really needed to eat it. I really ate it. And now, for me, unfortunately, by then I was not studying in the country. So I had to leave the next week to go and do my exams, because I had missed tests. So the university was kind enough to say, you come back, of course, and start doing your back-to-back. You just come and do papers. In the exam, I was crying. I would be doing a paper, just trying to write, trying to remember things. You know how it can be ridiculous. Someone has died, you're here trying to do a paper. How stupid is that? It seems so trivial. I would be in the middle of the exam crying, and they had given me they used to call them supplementary examinations. Luckily, my university had this policy that anyone who has had an issue, someone who has been sick, they give a week after the normal people, okay, not the normal, but the other students have done their papers, that they give, I think, a week or two after.
Yes.
Then they schedule everyone who has had
It's normal for universities.
Yeah,
I think it's throughout the world.
So, of course, when I was in the hospital, I used to try and read. Those things you try and read if you can't read, if anything can enter. So, of course, I had to go back immediately and do my exams. So, you know how you just go and you're going to talk to the lecturer and you're like, okay, sorry, what has happened? So, your exam is tomorrow. You start this one. They give you the time.
For them, their life is normal. Life moves on. Nothing has changed for them.
Your world has crashed. So, trying to move on in that instance was very, very difficult. But I think what also helped me was because my dad's workmate, his immediate boss, and his lawyer, you know how everyone is like, oh my God, you died, you're not going to study, those things. They came and told me, your dad is gone, but you will finish school. So I think that is a little energy that gave me to try and do those exams. I don't even know how I did that, because half the time I would be crying in the paper. Then you know how you're even trying to think, if nothing came automatically, then I would just cry. Then you're trying to calm down because you don't want so much attention. Then people will be like, okay, so you also don't want that. So it was really, really like how life just moves on. You just had this, oh my God, my world has ended. And somehow I'm like, yeah, here is your paper. Like,
And you have to go on. So usually it's that in that season, when everybody has gone, it's you who actually feels the pain, who understands what you're going through, and anybody else could be there to comfort you, to make you feel good, but they can never touch the core of your pain.
I think it's because grieving can only be done alone. Like what you were saying about how you everyone is there at a funeral. I mean, whether it's a vigil or whatever. It's amazing how for you, and that's why I always look at the people who are most affected. I always look at the immediate
family.
Yes. I always, like, for me, even up to today, when someone, I just look and like, for me, the pain just comes, like the way I felt, the way what was going through my mind all comes back.
It's quite amazing because after experiencing the loss of my dad, before I used to fear death. I used to fear death. Why? Because it had never taken away from me something that I held so dear. But when my dad died, honestly, however bad it may sound, it became normal for everybody else to die. Because I had lost the person that I had felt was the core of my natural being. So it became normal. Before, when people would tell me that my mom has died, my dad has died, I would really feel, because the first thing that I would think about is that this person is going to become an orphan. And when my dad died, actually, soon I said, so I have also joined them? I have become an orphan? Yeah. You know, it's like when people are telling us their stories, those are their stories. But when you become one with that story, it's like now you start experiencing what everybody else has experienced when they told you they had lost their mom, they had lost their dad. It becomes now a more personal thing. But as you've said, that grieving actually starts when everybody else has left. So Barbara, when you finished the burial for both your parents at the different times, when you came back home, now home, we've left them where we've buried them. In that moment, just like Viola said, she elaborated how she felt. You could even hear the pin falling on the floor. How was it in your house?
There's that silence that always comes with it. You know? I don't know why, but somehow the house is like a lot quieter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because each one is lost in their thoughts.
Yeah.
And they're trying to gather or comprehend what has just happened. They're trying to cut into the loss and understand why. So the house just was a lot quiet, but for my mom, as time went on and the place and my aunt is being there, it was a bit okay. For my dad, quiet for some months until I had Shazad. Now when I had him, things changed a little. Like your mind is preoccupied. You're thinking of work, then you have a child, and everyone is like, oh, as a baby, the baby's crying, so everyone is right. So there's that noise and hustle back into the house. But then sometimes my aunties would like make it so sad. Oh, he died without seeing his grandchild. The baby starts crying out, fresh and so on. And I'm like, these guys, can't they just get over that? Like, you know, when you're over that crying bit. And then for them, they're still, oh, Peter, then they're crying like, and you're like, you know what, auntie? It's fine. They're safe
wherever they are. Yeah.
Because now for you, you know your process has started of healing, and you don't want to get back into that. So my siblings and I had this thing of like always remembering them, speaking about how they used to be, the things they would say, and then probably laugh over it. And then like, if you like a particular food that my dad loved meat, like you serve him any other food, you'll be like, what do you think I am like to eat?
A whole goat, a whole cow.
He loved his meat. So I have a sister who is like that. She loves meat. The moment she didn't have meat, like, you know, it's always like you're just like your father. Like, they did have to check there. So with time, like talking about them, we began to relax. Like the silence started like leaving us, like slowly.
But after they have gone, you know, generally what happens, especially if you've moved on, I think if you're not living with your parent, your experience could be different, yours and hers and hers. I don't know whether, Diana, you had moved on and you were living on your own.
I was definitely married.
Oh, you were married. You were married, so your situation
So
could
when I
be
hear, I'm
similar to
listening
mine.
to their stories of the children still in the house. And mine was totally different, and I guess that people who have lost their parents and you're out there already attached to somebody else's experience is just totally different. You're not with your siblings. 1, 2, it's completely a different environment from home. 3, the morning may not be as you would have loved to do it. Probably there were issues. Now for me, it was even worse that in that same birth month of my son, it was a 2 weeks difference from the birth of my son. So the joy that I had had all been taken away. So like you said, when this happens to you, you're like, when someone tells you, oh, somebody has lost somebody, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because,
normal. I lost my
Because,
dad, I
yes,
lost
you've
my
lost
mom.
something that was so precious to you. Now for me, I had a lot of anger because just a few days before their passing on, I had written a love letter to my dad. He was in Fort Portal. I had placed in it 2 photos of me and the newborn baby because my mother was in Kampala. So I was excited that Daddy is going, because he had seen me the day before I checked into hospital. So I knew that now that I checked in, and then it's Mommy who came in after giving birth. So I knew, let me give Daddy a chance before I got Fort Portal. Let me give him a chance to see
An advance copy of his
his
grandson.
yes. So I had my love letter with the 2 photos. I still have them somewhere in my suitcase. Up to now, I've never opened that letter. So I kept the photos there, and then while I was about to hand it over to them to
your mom.
Yes, I knew my mother was well, and they were going for photo. So I had not even gotten the news. So my brother comes and delivers the news in my place that my dad had passed on. So here I had this excitement that I'm going to tell them, I'm not able to move, but I'm going to give you the letter. Daddy. And then they're like, Daddy has died. So before a short time, within a difference, I think, of hours, whatever it is, Mommy has died. So I knew my mommy had seen her grandchild, but my dad, who had seen me very pregnant, had not even seen his grandchild. So I had anger towards God. Then I was asking myself, but my parents were alive, they were moving, they were very normal. I have had people whose parents have been sick for
a long
time. But God, how could you
take these ones who were alive?
So unkind and do this to me. He hasn't even seen his grandchild. He hasn't. Everything was.
You had all these justifications for Daddy and Mommy to still be around.
I went to this other level of I don't care. Whatever you tell me, I don't care. I actually became very terrible in at work. I didn't mind whatever my supervisor, my manager would ever tell people working with me. No, I had this attitude. I do not care. Whatever you want to say, losing a job was never an issue for me. Losing anything was never an issue for me. Everything was like it was all gone. So I don't know what you want to tell me as my manager. I don't know what you want to tell me. But for me, my life, I don't care.
I've felt the worst pain that I can ever feel.
That's where I was. But of course, with time, you grow. You grow. The time is a healing factor. You start moving on. You get back to God.
Exactly. I remember after my dad passed and I came back to work, I had been so strong. And what hit me was when we were going to bury, according to our tradition, there must be an heir. Now, time came and everybody was asking my mom for who the heir was. She didn't know. They asked my uncle, my dad's brother. He had no idea. So in the meeting, they had to call my father's friends. And we were there as children, as the family, we were there. And my eldest brother is a soldier and he was outside on a mission. So my struggle was to get my brother back because I knew by default he was supposed to be the heir. And I struggled so much to make sure that my dad is not buried without his heir being present. Now, as I struggled for all this, when we had the meeting, my dad's friend says, well, I know that my friend didn't leave a will, but in the conversations we had, he said, Susan, that I was supposed to be his heir. Now, I think that was an addition to my confusion. Because according to our tradition, it's boys that inherit after their fathers. So it was some kind of confusion. I did accept before the burial, because there's that ceremony where you handed over the Bible and handed over so many other things. I went through the ceremony. But then when I came back to Kampala, I kept on wondering, why did my father do this? Why did he do this to me? And I remember for several times, I would be driving either to work, I'm alone, and I would just burst and cry. I would just cry when I'm in my car. And sometimes I would look at an old person, almost my dad's, and I would smile. I started seeing my dad in different people who were his age. And also, not that I disrespected older people, but then I started respecting older people much more. If I met them, whether it is in a queue, I would allow them to go before me. I was always, up to today, I find it, I easily warm up to older people. And especially if you're by my father's name, my dad was called Sam. So usually people called Sam, I have a special place in my, I don't know whether it's, but anybody called Sam to me means, because it's like saying that name reminds me about my dad. That he's not forgotten, that he's not dumped somewhere out there, but he's there. So that's why I keep on seeing him in different people. But of course, other than that situation of being lost and being confused, sometimes we have issues even within our families. That's true. Within our families, as siblings. Because I remember after my father's death, people started pointing fingers at each other. Maybe he could still be alive if you had done this, if you had not done this, if you had done this. And all this, I came to realize that it's people struggling to come to terms with this loss. Sometimes in that moment, we say things to each other as siblings that we don't actually mean. But because we are in so much pain, and I think it's actually worse if you didn't have a good relationship with that parent who has gone. Because I think it affects you more. You go down on this guilty trip. You start asking yourself that maybe if I had called him more, if I had spoken to them more, if I had visited more, you just want to justify, validate what you're feeling in the moment. Did you ever feel that you could have spent some more time with them? Or, because I remember there was something that my father used to do, and I had reached a point where it would irritate me. When you would go and visit him, from home to Kampala is like 3 hours. My father could call you about 10 times on the road. Where have you reached? And I reached a point where I stopped answering his calls. I would wait to reach home, then call him back. And I remember there was something he used to say, that when I call you, I'm not disturbing you. I just care, and I just want to know whether you are okay. Now, when they die, these are things that start playing. They start playing on us. That maybe I should have picked his phone calls more, maybe this, maybe that. So Viola, did you ever feel this guilty, did you feel maybe you should have done something better or something more?
No, I didn't, because I was at university, and for me, I always say that my relationship with my father had turned from a parental relationship into a friend. Mm-hmm. So I was at university, so sometimes he would call and be like, how was school? Like people maybe asking how you're performing, because he was such a person who was so much about academics. So luckily, when I was in university, like the first 2 years, I was on the dean's merit list. So he no longer used to call me about that. So I'm like, what kind of parent calls me? I don't talk about school. So he called me and talk about Man United, talk about, like we would have a real conversation about other things. Mm-hmm. Even sometimes he'd ask me, how much pocket money do you want? And I'd be like, do you you want me to take? Because I'm like, if you can't afford it, like what I want, so just give me whatever you want.
You're being given a blank check.
Yeah, so I told him, no, just give me whatever you can. Yeah, like, so we had that joking thing. And I think that is maybe the only thing I can maybe regret, is that our relationship was now becoming more of a friendship and less of a parental or what that kind of thing. So we'll joke about stuff, you know. He said, did you watch the game the other day? You know, that's what we used to talk about. Or, you know, like just general things.
General stuff.
Like it was just general conversation. Actually, his only gripe was I never used to call him enough. And I think that was, but I don't really, because I appreciate that we had reached that friendship.
A parent who is your friend.
Yeah, like it was no longer, you know, a kind of like scared thing, whatever. So I really, really appreciate that. I not so much like regret, but the only thing I regret is we didn't have more time. So
Exactly. Just like anybody would have loved to have more time with their parents.
Yeah, but that's really it, yeah. So because we had planned.
Okay. Salome, do you have that experience with your family after daddy has gone and it's you with your mom and your other siblings? What was it like for you?
Okay, after the burial of my dad, and after the 4 days, for me in Toro it is 4 days, everyone left and we remained. But we did go through a lot of mourning because we remained a small family. Our dad was the bread earner for us, so we had to fit in. Each of us was supposed to go and look where the tea estates are, and we start from the scratch. By then I was the only one at school, so we had to go and look for how we can survive with our old elder mom. My mom used to walk to the gardens and come back. We were so confused. Then most of our relatives, our dad was the uniting factor. He was our father, he was the head of the clan, he was everything. Both on our maternal side, he was everything. On our father's side, he was the whole clan. So when he passed on, people left us. We remained alone with our mom, with nothing completely to start on. Though there was a tea estate, we didn't know what to do, where it was, and how the tea industries ran. But our mom was so strong. We started with my brother. The good thing, my brother stays at home, the hair. So we started with him going to the tea estates 1 week. I also go 1 week. My sister, my elder sister, for her, she lost it completely. Actually, when my dad died, for her, she was admitted. She couldn't believe it. She was so close. So we struggled like that to bring. But being from different mothers, then conflict started. Conflict started with relatives. I want this. The will was read. This is not enough for me. So we still fight that
up to today. And that is something that is very interesting with our African tradition. By the time a man moves, if I can quote the Bible, the Bible says that a man leaves his parents, the woman leaves her parents and she's joined with her husband. And they begin a whole new life together. This is far from his parents, you're far from your parents, and you start building your own life, far from your brothers and your sisters. So you start building your life, you have your children. Why is it that in our African tradition that our uncles and aunties want to fight for our parents' properties? It's something that is really, really a big problem. We had the same issue after my dad passed. My dad had bought land from his brother, and there were things that had not yet been concluded. And when he was sick, when he was on his sick bed, I remember my mom trying to work on those things, and my dad was like, wait, when I get well, I'll be able to handle my people. It will be easier. They will look at you in a different way as a woman. So when I get well, I'll be able to resolve them. The day my father died and we buried him, My dad died as the heir to his father. So when he left, another heir was chosen. So I remember my mom calling that heir and us as a family having a meeting with him and telling him about the issue of land that we had. And he said, we will handle it. But it is so interesting that they have fought us, our uncles, to make sure that we never get that land. And this happens to many African families. It's especially on the uncle's side. And we expect, I sometimes think that, do these guys think that for them they will never die? How would you feel if this was happening to your own children? But that is what goes on in our culture, and that is what children go through.